Shalom Aleichem and a good morning, wonderful, holy Chevra online and Baruch HaShem, Chevra in person. And I just want to, number one, thank the anonymous donor who sponsored these shiurim. Be'ezras Hashem, mamash, they should go from strength to strength. They're a chosen and they should mamash be working on themselves to really build Shativne Bais Ne'eman B'Yisrael. Be'ezras Hashem is Baruch. And as well, thank you to the Chevra here who turn up. And I'm hoping, I was just saying a moment ago, I'm hoping and I really deeply want to be useful. It's funny, it's a funny nakuda to point out. Something comes up right now and I want to share, as it's this sort of share that one can do this, especially when we're speaking about the mechanisms of how the human being works. So the nefesh just shared something with me. And my nefesh shared with me something that we spoke about yesterday that I think is just important to take into consideration. And that is, as we go into these teachings, as we go into these Torahs, there's an element of simplicity, there's a structural understanding, which we'll speak a little bit about today, but as well there's the experience. So we are freeze-framing a process for the sake of education. But in real time, the human experience is not always easy. The human experience is not always easy. The myriads of thoughts and feelings, the myriads of different ways of looking at this world is apparent to us. What we've picked up, what we haven't picked up, what we miss and what we get. It's not easy, the human experience. Sometimes the human experience seems absolutely wonderful, Gan Eden. And sometimes the human experience seems mamash like a Gehenna. So the nakuda of the human experience we have to validate is so complex. Yet the architecture is so simple. And we live with this difficulty, we live with this challenge. And it's not always so straightforward and it's not always easy. What we do know, the better we know the architecture. And as I said, the backdrop of the front end of living a life of Torah and mitzvahs, a life of keeping halacha and trying to keep the halachas to the best of our ability. That front end becomes so much more meaningful and is in partnership with a back end of understanding, the architecture of the soul. That back end of understanding that when we speak about the human being, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, B'Tselem Elokim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us in a way, a structural way, where there's a neshama, a ruach and a nefesh. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu has expectations to how we work. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a beautiful world and wants us to have a beautiful experience in His beautiful world. And as we know, based on the Medrash Rabbah that we've quoted before, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Adam around Gan Eden and said to Adam, I've made for you a beautiful garden. Don't mess it up. And what does Adam do? Adam and Chava, they fell. But as well, part of that falling is our journey. We can't run away from it. We can't ignore it. What we have to do is deal with it. So the way Adam and Chava worked before Gan Eden to the way Adam and Chava work now after Gan Eden, it's not something that we can go back necessarily to. There's certain nakudas that we can work with, but the main avodah is to face and confront the difficulty. It's to confront the darkness, and it's to enjoy all of those good experiences we have. And something which I observe many people speak about and glorify the darkness. Many people speak about and glorify people's mental health issues in a way to validate and encourage. So a person may have this issue or this challenge, and you hear a lot of teachers and they will say, it's from the darkness that we experience HaShem. It's from the darkness. It is true. It is very, very true. However, what we want is to the best of our ability to experience goodness. And we want to set ourselves up to experience goodness. And the 2 points I want to share before we go into our introduction, I know it's such a nuisance. I'm sorry. Mamash Mechila, I know. Chazda Hashem, you're mechazik me, but I know some people are not mechazik by it. But it is what it is. What I would like to share is 2 points. Number one, we may have mentioned this last week, I don't remember, but I was speaking last week at a shiur, and we mentioned something this week at the shiur as well. Last week we mentioned in shiur that we can on the most simplest level, there's 4 points to start to contemplate, to really go into. And Rav Kook, for example, in Musar Avicha, works on sharing 5 points that we really need to work on to understand the framework of Yiddishkeit. So this is true. I would add a couple of nekudas, B'schus and B'schus Rav Kook, who got me thinking about this. We just finished the Shiur Musar Avicha. We finished the Sefer, Baruch Hashem. What is that? So we work in our community with the most fundamental elements, fundamentals and structure. Why fundamentals and structure? Because the more fundamental you go and the more structurally fundamental you can go, on a certain respect, the easier things become. It's true to say there's mayhem and chaos. But again, the more fundamental you go and the more structurally you go, you can understand equations like, there's an architecture to the soul. We work a certain way. There's a mechanism to the way we function. And human experience, validating it, is sometimes icky. It's sometimes glorious. So there's this balancing act of taking into consideration structure and the experience. And sometimes what happens is one is focused on while the other is not. So equations are created without taking human experience into the picture. And by the Biala Rebbe and by Rabbi Singer, this was something so important. You could speak structurally, but when you speak structurally, validate human experience. And that's why I say it time and time again, because I, Khalil V'chaz, don't want to mislead. I don't want to mislead. I have enough on my head. I don't need that as well. When someone comes and says, you said to do this and this and this, and then it happens, they do it, and it doesn't end up well for them. That's why, for example, the derech of Avodah that we received is when you sit with somebody, ask them, what do you think? Does this seem sound? And I will say to them, the Biala Rebbe says, don't be afraid to say that this may not work. This may work. We're trying. It's a trial and error. This comes from the Masorah of Chabad. It comes from the Masorah of the Chabad. So this nakuda is a very important nakuda. So fundamentally, if you think about it, the things to investigate, which are the most fundamental, is you exist. You exist. So you have to experience and explore your existence. That's one fundamental. Which, okay, I exist. I should know. I should know a little bit about myself. I exist. Okay, I'm here. In my, let's say, subjective experience. In my subjective experience, I'm here now. Okay, Shalom Yisrael. Okay. Number 2, I'm within something. I'm in a space. I'm in a space, and as we notice in life, there's something called time and space. So I exist, and I'm existing in time and space. Oh, wow, okay, fine. Fundamental, nachon? Fundamental. And another fundamental is that we experience pain and pleasure, whether we call it ahava, whatever we want to call it. I'm not going into Lashon HaKodesh names right now, but we experience pain and pleasure. So I know that I exist, fundamental. I know I exist within some sort of system, fundamental. I know I experience discomfort and comfort, fundamental. So now what are the ingredients to feel comfortable, to feel good? Kupshutai. They're like the most basic ingredients. And if we think a little bit, we come to a conclusion, there's something out of the system, within the system. Again, I'm not getting philosophical, Kabbalistic, but we lean into this reality. There's a Bara Olam. So when we can look at fundamentals and when we could draw out fundamentals, especially if those fundamentals, and this is a key component, are humanistically pleasing. That means they work the way the human being functions. That's something incredibly special.
What comes first?
In what sense?
Is it being molded to the human experience?
Okay, let's not go there right now. That's a very important question. The question was asked, what comes first? Is it molded to the human experience? So I would say yes and no. It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, but it's a bigger conversation and a very important question. So this nakuda, I exist, fine, I've got that. I exist within a system. There's pain and pleasure, and I want to try and figure out how to experience more pleasure, and what are the ingredients for pleasure? Well, this is the fundamental of our derech of avodah. But more fundamentally is that this is the avodah of brias ha'olam, that you have, the world is created, Adam and Chava eat in the Garden of Eden. There's a breakdown, and that breakdown, we are told by Chazal in several places, lasts for 6,000 years. We're told what the Avodah is structurally. Again, structure. Taking in structure and taking in human experience. So I know, and we haven't gone into this is a part of our Derech HaAvodah called Divine Plan. So I know after Adam and Chava ate from the tree, there was a disconnect. There was now a new world called Olam Hazeh, and there was a world called Olam HaNeshamos. And they run parallel for 6,000 years, and something will happen either before 6,000 years, or it will happen at year 6,000 years, we'll wait and see, where these two worlds now come together, and that becomes Olam Haba. I don't know what it means. I can share with you what the Sfarim explain and the Shita that we follow, because even again, within Torah, there's so many Shitot, we have to pick something. And that's why we have Asel Charav. So I'm picking the system that was taught to me that's very, very pleasing to the mind and very pleasing to all the sugiyas. If you look in the sugiyas, according to the Bial Rebbe, according to Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira, according to Rabbi Moshe Shapira, so on and so forth. That was their shita. There's a machlekes Ramban, what these words mean. Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba, where do we go when we die? There is all of these machlekes. I'm sharing with you a version that we go with to make life incredibly simple, and is derech ha'emes from the Messiah that I received from my teachers. So why I say that is because somebody can come and say, oh, there's different shitot. I know. We're not going there right now. That's for another time. What we're trying to understand here in our text, here in our experience of what we're trying to build, trying to chap a pshat that makes life not just easier, but far better, far holier, far more connected, because we want to experience the Veikus Emunah and Bitachon. And the more that we are aligned, which we're speaking about today, the more that we are in sync, the more that we chap shat the structure, and the more that we hear it time and time again. Again, very important. And I said I'll repeat this. I'm sorry. Please, don't. I don't mean to offend you. I don't mean to offend your intellect when I repeat something 1,000 times. The reason being, it's not about the intellect. It's about owning an idea, and it's about having the ability to, at least within you, sense it. Now, one thing with this Derech HaAvodah, which is really odd, and maybe you can judge for yourself. If somebody would ask you, what did you discuss today? So at times, you'll be able to share what you experienced. But I can assure you, just as it was in my experience, at times, all you could do is sense something. And then months later, the more you turn up, months later you turn around and you realize, oh, I'm different. I'm not functioning the same. I'm different. And that's what we want. That's what a Derech HaAvodah is. It's turning up. As we mentioned, turning up doesn't lie. And we look back and we say, I'm dealing differently with this. In an area where maybe I used to get triggered a bit more, I am less triggered. Or an area where I couldn't share with somebody what's going on in my head because of the shame or the guilt, I can share. I can share openly. And yes, it's always a risk. It's a risk to live. However, when we can hear these ideas time and time again, and for me, there's a sense of urgency. And maybe I'm nogea b'davar. I spoke to somebody this morning, and it was a WhatsApp message, but in one of the chaburas, it's interesting because in one of the chaburas, I said something that wasn't so pleasant about a group of people. And it's interesting, I did a cheshbon nefesh. I'm nogea b'davar. When you hear something time and time again, sometimes you get colored and clouded in your perception. And this person called me out in a respectful way, and I did a cheshbon nefesh, regardless if he's right or wrong. But the point is to realize that we get colored by our own experience. And the more we're balei das, and the more we can pull back, and the more we can have critical thinking, the more that we have to go with the truth. We have to go with the truth. Reb Rafal Dabush, my wife's great-great-grandfather, he speaks about the tefillin shel yad and the tefillin shel rosh. The tefillin shel yad has one box. The tefillin shel rosh has 4 boxes. What's pshat? You can have as many deis in your head as you want, but tachlis, there's only room for one halacha. There's only room for one way of living. And it's an avodah that we have to balance up. So this nakuda of most fundamental, I exist within a system, there's pain, pleasure, and I want to try and find the ingredients for pleasure. And the complexity of that, if you think about it, when we are in the moment, when we're in a state of das, we are channeling in a state of das, and hopefully you'll understand this idea quite easily. I'm hoping. When we're in a state of das and we're present, we are channeling past, present, and the future all at once. Why? Because as we have mentioned, in the present moment, I'm taking in data from my 10 senses. There's 5 senses, we have the sense of balance, sense of self, etc., etc. There's 10 senses. So you take in information through your 10 senses in the present moment. This is called, by the way, in the language of Rabbi Nachman, Rotzav V'Shav. I go into my nefesh, I'm in a state of das, and I'm in a state of alignment, neshama, ruach, and nefesh. I'm present, and I'm taking in data. That data then is met by my previous history. So in the nefesh, we said, is our previous history. That's all our memories. My expectations and my assumptions in the present moment of how I relate to a situation is met very quickly by a wealth of history, a whole lifetime, depending on what age. And as well, multi-generational lifetimes. And then that, in the present moment, gives me insight how I should relate to the next moment. So in the present moment, there's this complex algorithm that's going on. And we forget that. So for example, where I was teaching, it was late at night, and there was chevra that was tired. We said, whatever is stronger, whatever is louder grabs your attention. Whatever is louder grabs your attention. Whatever you feed becomes stronger. You do have an element of experience and control over that. But the nakuda is, what happens if you come to a talk late at night and you're tired? You're tired. So you really want to listen. But what's louder? The tiredness is louder. It's no one's fault. It isn't someone's fault. It's this nakuda of realizing that's what's louder right now. And it's a balancing act of knowing how to judge a situation, shikl hadas, how to hold and judge a situation. And as well, through holding a situation, judging the situation, how to navigate it. Maybe I should stand up. Maybe I should go get a drink. Maybe I should do some push-ups, loosen up or something. And we don't always chap that, because we're not educated into what it is to be a tzelem Elokim. These are the practical applications. Self-knowledge gives you the availability, understanding the architecture of the soul, at least in the shita, the way we're sharing it, and there's many other shitot out there as well. It's not one against the other. This is what we are transmitting here. But the nakuda is, in the present moment, it's a darn complex experience. The human experience is a complex experience. I'm right now, in this present moment, taking in data through all of my senses. As I speak to you, I'm not even aware of it, it's happening very deeply. There's a Rotzav V'Shav. I'm going into my nefesh. My nefesh is sharing with me at a very, very quick rate, based on memories of all the other shiurim and based on other events that are going on, in what to say next. That's a lot.
Not conscious.
Not conscious. That's a lot. And what we want to understand is, the more that we understand how we work, we can shift from exile within exile to redemption within exile as an individual, to redemption within redemption. And this shift is in our generation. This is where it's at. The honest truth is, as we've said before, this is where it is at. All the tzaddikim, whether the Baal Shem Tov, whether the Gra, whether the Rashash, whether the Chida, whether the Ramchal, it's that shift. Pinmin Satira is a set of wisdom teachings that intellectually stimulate our minds. However, tachlis, the more we know divine plan, how the Bria works, and we recognize that what's big is small and what's small is big, it's all one system. It's all one system. Everything parallels each other, like we spoke about in the world of Kabbalah. And why I'm saying that? Maybe I'm just talking to myself here. Like, that's the reality. Maybe my nefesh shared with me something that I want to share. Really, I've just found a way. This is how subtle and complex it becomes. Maybe I found a way to take something I wanted to share and tie it back into what we are teaching right now. Maybe this was a whole selfish experience of me sharing. Maybe it didn't have much to do with you. I believe not, but really I don't know. Really I don't know. I didn't plan to start this way.
Just an experiment?
Maybe it's not an experience. It's an experience that's happening right now.
If you're not sure if it would be Nogay at first, then why would you share it?
Because that's what came up to share. I planned to start with something else, which we're going to go into now. But that's the point I'm trying to share of the human experience. I stand here, and this is what came up. I believe it's matim. It's on subject with what we're speaking about. But what I'm trying to share with you, the human experience is very complex. We don't always know. And it's okay.
It could be a nefesh experience, or your nefesh wanted to do it, or it could be some sort of ruach.
Yes.
It could be just tapping
Yes.
into what we need. Maybe
Yes.
yes, maybe no.
Yes. And I don't know. And you don't know. We don't know.
Are we supposed to try to find out?
So you can do it. I did a quick shikal adas. I think this is matim for right now. And where we're going now, I think it's matim. But at the end of the day, you know who's going to judge it? You are. With what we just experienced now, who's going to judge it? You are.
Well, so are you, eventually.
I'm going to judge it, but my judgment, my independent judgment, I've already done. I don't know. This is the challenge. And this is why we need each other. This is why we need Aseh Lecha Rav. This is why we need friends around us. Because we don't know. We can get lost in our subjective experience. And there's this balancing act, which is an integration. And that's why I believe Derech HaAvodah is quite sound. I say quite sound again. You've heard me speak before. There's a liberty. There's a liberty and an honesty in recognizing that my teachers, for sure, they said to me, I'm going to share with you information, and you will have to adapt this information for the space you live in, the language you speak in, for the chevra that you are with. That was an expectation of the tzaddikim, Rabbi Shua Pinchasi, the Talmidim of Rabbi Usha Freund, whether Rabbi Singer. And it's not always easy, and it is a journey, but for sure, again, the fundamental, I exist within a system. Within that system, there's pain and pleasure, and I want the ingredients to feel pleasure, a good life, and we don't do it by ourselves. So this nakuda is an important nakuda. It's a complex human experience. The architecture of the soul, we are making still for the sake of education. We are freeze-framing a moving system. Go on, yes.
Just to clarify the idea of the fundamentals, that there's pain and pleasure, but isn't, at least in that one in particular, can't we say that's almost like an oversimplification of referring to them? Because
Of course it is. But okay. Why? So let me ask you a question. You're saying something, yeah? In your experience, you heard something, and you use the words oversimplification. Now, in my words, didn't I say that? In my words, didn't I say that?
In the beginning.
Yeah, when the Rav introduced it, he referred to it. But then when the Rav ran to it again now, it just seems like even to say pain and pleasure is like almost, it's just so broad.
What are we speaking about? There's structure and experience. You are right. It's an oversimplification, but the fact is we have to start somewhere. And if we start just with the human experience, everybody has their subjective human experience, and we will get nowhere. So the Torah lays a blueprint, a structure, and through that structure takes into consideration your subjective experience. So you're 100% right. But I would state it not as a question, but now as a statement. I would say like this, and tell me if I'm mismatching what you are saying. That this sounds like an oversimplification, and I realize it's an oversimplification because you're speaking on a structural level, and the experience of it doesn't seem like that. You've oversimplified the experience of it. Correct.
And and I guess the idea really would be is that this is being introduced. The notion of structure is that it's meant to almost trigger the idea of recognizing where your experiences fit in. Is that part of the idea?
Yes.
It makes it much easier.
Yes.
I guess that's what I subconsciously just did without
Correct.
realizing it.
Correct.
But
Correct.
Is there a certain safety? Being able to, that your experience isn't just chaotic?
well, at least it's always
Fits
it
into the
bridges.
system?
Yeah, it certainly bridges.
It bridges
Yeah.
and it gives room for. And it hopefully makes us more compassionate. Like it's a very, very simple, when you listen to these ideas, it can make you more patient and it can make you more compassionate. If I know I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations in the present moment, and that's that person's experience as well, and we speak about it, we speak about Baal Shem Tov listening, we speak about the fact that, the architecture of the soul is, and the human experience is. When I'm speaking to somebody, and they're a child, when I'm speaking to a child, it doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter age. I remember speaking once, I think it was to Rav Ovadia, and there was some sort of accident where, unfortunately, children were killed in an accident. And I remember Rav Ovadia, he was speaking, I brought somebody in the mishpacha to Rav Ovadia, and Rav Ovadia said, in the way that they were speaking, he says, I want to ask you a question. Are you more emotional when it's a child to when it's an adult?
The world is.
The world is. And Rav Ovadia said, from a Torah perspective, you shouldn't be. He gave them in a very loving, mesudar way, he gave them Musa. And the father looked, and he goes, wow, life is life. But we are there's human experience. But there's an architecture to the soul.
Wait, does that mean that if a person who lived a full life, 120 years, passes away, that it's just as sad as a
Correct.
child who
Correct.
passes at 7?
Correct. It's a big, I heard this, it took me a long time to think about this in a number of conversations. But Rav Ovadia was saying, life is life. Life is life, kapshutai. Life is, we make it, there's more potential, it was a child, it was this, but life is life.
That's the structure of what? That's structure? That's the structure.
That's an akudah of structure. In Yiddishkeit, pikuach nefesh is pikuach nefesh.
But you're doing CPR on a 98-year-old is way different than doing it on a child.
That's not the point. The point that Rav Ovadia was trying to share was that we have this bias, thinking a particular thought, and who says? That's it. Who says? We get colored. Now, if there's a halacha, if there's a halachic diuk that one has to choose, that's a different matter. But tachlis, life is life. That's all we're saying. We get colored.
But somebody who lived a full life, when at the funeral, at the levaya, at the shiva, there's kind of a celebration of that person's life. There's laughing and there's joking because we know this person lives a full life and we want to celebrate.
Again, that's experiential. We're talking about Torah. We're talking about structural. We're talking about the structure. Every life is important, regardless if it's a little being or a big being.
But halachically, that's not true because you take someone who.
I just said, halachically, it's a different nukuda. Again, we're getting lost here. All Rav Ovadia was saying is that life is life, and we treat every life in a very sacred way.
Then it should go towards animals, it should go towards plants.
We're moving into something. All the point that Rav Ovadia was trying to make, the only point that Rav Ovadia was trying to make is sometimes we fall into a bias, and the bias is a human subjective experience, but really the totality of it is no, every life is precious. That's it. That's all I was talking about. I'm not talking about the prat of the situation. I'm just talking about the message that was given and how we buy into something. And Rav Ovadia was saying every life is precious. It doesn't matter the age. That's all. We're talking about the ability to understand human subjective experience. And when a person understands how we work, we can have more patience for somebody going through their subjective experience, and we can ask questions to try and pull somebody out if it's not a good way of looking at something, or reframing. By the way, this is an akud of nechama. Nechama means to reframe. So you're not wrong, but you're picking on something that I just want to concentrate on this nakuda of having the ability to look at something a particular way, structurally And sometimes we fall into the structural way too much, and sometimes we fall into the experiential way, the subjective way too much. And it's this balancing act. That's what we're trying to share here. Yes?
I just want to clarify, the Rav is not saying that in experience we will feel, or even that we necessarily should feel, that the loss of an elderly person who lived a full life is the same as a child. We should know it, but maybe it's easier actually, instead of doing a child and an elderly person, for myself I'm thinking it's easier to separate it as my grandfather versus somebody's grandfather.
Correct.
Right? So technically it's the same loss.
Correct.
I won't feel it as strongly.
Correct. That's subjective.
will.
Exactly. Subjective and structurally.
So exactly, the
Yes.
structure is the
And
same.
you, as a person relating to it, because you know this, you can have, because
A
you're in a
deeper
state of
compassion
das,
for the
you can
person
have
who
more
lost.
tolerance, das. You can recognize, you could be more, have more rachamim.
Right. So, because I have experience, that's fundamental number 3. Because I experience pain and pleasure, and that's just the way that it is. I'm not trying to run away from the fact. I'm not trying to equate the loss of, let's say, my grandfather, Alav Shalom, with the loss of somebody else's grandfather in my experience.
Correct.
I'm trying to see their experience.
Correct.
Reflected through my own experience.
Yes.
Understand what their experience could potentially be.
Yes.
And when I lost my grandfather, I could also pull back from that painful experience and say to myself, other people have lost their grandfathers too. They have survived.
Yes.
We have all experienced this
Exactly.
pain. I can get comfort from
Exactly.
other people who have experienced
Exactly.
this. And
We're not negating.
we're not negating.
We are
the experience,
understanding
we're
in
just
context.
Right.
Gemara
It's the
Yerushalmi.
difference between the tefillin shel Rosh and the tefillin shel-
Yes.
Yeah, this is my experience.
Correct.
It's going to take over and be
Correct.
a whole one experience of losing a grandfather.
Correct.
But it's not the only experience.
Correct.
And okay.
Correct. And when we live like that, we live better. Society becomes better. Society becomes better.
We live like what when we realize that there's subjective and structure.
Correct. And we live better. We can hold each other
There
better.
wouldn't be noise. There wouldn't be nearly as much
There'll
noise.
be far less noise.
Yeah.
Far less noise. Yes, sir.
Life is life, the experiential way we relate to that event differs based upon the
Individual.
Right, because the loss of a parent for a person is much harder than the loss of a child for a person. It's both a loss.
Yes.
The way the experiential manifestation of that loss to that one person, though, is so different.
Correct. Exactly.
And you're saying that, but you have to understand that that's because of the structure helps us relate to that.
Correct.
type of-
In regards to any loss, anything that happens, anything. We're just using an extreme example of loss, but this is day to day. Bracha v'atzlacha. This is day to day. This is how we function. We're always functioning with human experience through the lens of a human architecture. And when we understand the human architecture, when we understand neshama, ruach, and nefesh, when we understand that we are das, when we understand that I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, when I can understand the structure, and this is what the Sfarim point at, when I understand the structure, when I can do tikkun hamidos and help adjust my perception of the experience, life is completely different. And that's how we lead into ruach hakodesh and nevuah. There's the experience and the structure. There's the structure and there's the experience. And in the language that we are speaking and transmitting, the Tzelem Elokim takes into consideration both. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So what we see today, for many, many hundreds of years, people will turn around and say, Judaism was very structural. Halacha, halacha, halacha. Now today, because it's been so structural, and especially after the war, now people have become more modern, they're going into therapy. And in regards to therapy, everything is subjective, respect the subjective, respect the subjective. Yiddishkeit always held both positions. You look, for example, the halachas before Mincha speaks about doing something l'shem shamayim. Eating, sleeping, that's subjective. That's called Olam HaRashus. Judaism, the Torah takes into consideration subjective, as well as the structural. I don't want to use objective, but I will do the structural objective.
What do you consider structural? What's the
That there's a structure that's a universal structure to human experience and the way the world works. Kabbalah is a structure. Kabbalah is sharing a structure. There's a structure to human experience. And within the structure to human experience, neshama, ruach, and nefesh, there's as well the subjective. And you can't separate. You can only work with. You can only work with it. And if you separate it, it causes mayhem and chaos. If you bring it together, it breeds compassion and tolerance.
Referring to the spheros in that structure?
Correct. Well, give a minute. I'm looking at the time. Give a minute because we're going to go. I'm going to show you two nakudas as we go into this next piece, which is, again, an introduction for this next piece, to really try and understand it from a deeper perspective, Be'ezras Hashem. So, as we go weiter now, with all of that, respecting the structure and respecting the experience, remember the words change and transition. Change and transition. We want to take into consideration the change, which I've just been in one experience and I've come into another experience. The transitioning we haven't consciously done yet, but now with the transitioning, sometimes an introduction has to happen in the middle, but with the transitioning, just take into consideration, look around the room that you are in and recognize that everybody can see what you are seeing in regards to the room that we are in, but everyone right now in this moment is looking at the room differently because you're sitting differently. You're sitting in different positions. But take into consideration as well that you yourself right now have all of your memories. So as you look at the room, you're not just looking at the room. You're looking at the room with all your thinking, all your memories. It may not be there in the forefront, but it's in the background. As we know from Ori Yisrael, letter 6, there's the subconscious, the dunkel, the dark parts, the hidden parts. But then we've got the bahir, the revealed parts. So as you sit here, das tachton chitzoni, I'm just looking around. And even your looking around, which is present in the moment, is met by all of these experiences that you don't necessarily see, experience, because it's deeper. And listen to what's going on. So even with your listening, it could be everyone will say, I can hear the clock. But the clock is going to be louder for the people that's closer and more distant to the people that are further. So even your experience of what you hear is always going to be different because of the angle, because of the return of the sound to your ears. Take a breath, see if you could smell something. So it's interesting, I don't know if you could smell, but I can smell coffee. I picked up a scent of coffee. Maybe over there you can't, because it's further away. It's even smell. So das tachton chitzoni, for yourself, is a recognition that I'm in a space and there's time. And like, for example, right now my nefesh is telling me, you're meant to be reading for the blasted kuntras, and you've just done like a silly introduction of 23-minute introduction or 33-minute introduction, well, blah, 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 blah. That's what my nefesh is telling me. But I'm telling my nefesh, okay, shh. Now I can't smell the coffee. You see?
I can hear the clock and not smell the coffee.
You see what happens? So now what do we do with that? So the transitioning and change and transitioning, it's having that awareness that all of us are going through this, but we all have 5 senses. We all are taking data in. We all are processing it in real time. And by the tzaddikim, they knew how to hold that within themselves. And they know how to hold that with other people. We're the tzaddikim. We're the tzaddikim. So we can't run away from it. If we run away from it, we're never going to get anywhere. When we face it and we're re-educated in what it is to be a tzelem Elokim, then we experience less noise, we experience greater compassion, tolerance, more Ruach HaKodesh, leading to Nevuah. And this is Tikkun Hamidos. This is what Tikkun Hamidos is. And Lemashal, I just want to read. So this is from the Evnei Ezra Shemois Lamed Aleph Yud Ches on Chachmai Maloi. Shoresh kol mitzvos ad she'ahev es HaShem b'chol nafshoi, with all your soul, v'yidavek bo. That ultimately, what we're going to see in a minute, I draw out a picture, we want to love Hashem with all our nefesh. It says nefesh, nafshoi. V'lo yachol ladas Hashem v'im lo yada nafshoi v'nafshoi soi v'gufoi. You can't know Hashem if you don't know your nefesh, and the different parts of your soul and your body. Ki kol ma shelo yada mehus nafshoi, because everything that you know comes from your nefesh.
So the godly experiences that we think we have are not actually it if we don't actually know.
It's very subjective. I don't know. It's a very difficult matzav that we have to take into consideration. But if I have a selech harav, if I'm living a healthy life to the best of my ability, if I've got friends around me, you can trust your experience. Yes.
It says nafshoso,
Yes.
and gufo?
Yes. The way that we've been sharing. Again, everything that we're sharing you could find in the Svarim. This is
being...
the nefesh so all Alpi Kabbalah, Alpi Sod, everything is within the nefesh, nefesh. We said this right at the beginning. Everything is within the nefesh, nefesh.
So
they represent
nafsho would be the overall, and nafshoso, what I'm saying, is more about understanding the parts the way it
Yes.
interacts with it. Okay.
Yes. So now, just to open this up a little bit more with a picture. I like pictures. So what happens is that we are wanting to be, as it says in the Medrash, that we are wanting to be a merkava for Hashem's light. We're told in the Medrash, when will your maisim be like the maisim of the Avos? What does that mean? When will you become, as the Medrash says, a merkava like the Avos? And this is something which is very important to understand, because you hear when we speak, there's a great centering around you. Obviously, we're speaking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're speaking about being Isaac in Torah and mitzvahs, Kedusha and Tahara, we're speaking about keeping every din in the Shulchan Aruch. However, a lot of the time, you matter. We say these Lashonos, you matter, you are important. Why? Because you are the Merkava. You are the Merkava. You are the one that is shaping the Or Ein Sof, Hashem's light as it comes down. As we read Kepshutai in the Psukim of Parshas Chai Sarah with Avram Avinu, you look at Rashi in Kaf Daled, we went through it, that Avram Avinu turns and says that if it wasn't for me, Hashem wouldn't be known in this world. In the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs us. Ein melech bli am. Ein melech bli am. And it's not a nukuda of contention. Avodah tzorich gavoa. And you look at so many places, Megillah, Rashi, Birkas Kohanim, so many places, Saita, so many places that speak about this nukuda. You are the vessel. So your avodas Hashem matters. Your tikkun hamidos matters, because the quality of the background of who you are structurally, understanding who you are structurally, and working on your midos, that you are living a life that is so kadosh and so pure and so holy, will affect anything and everything that you do. It's going to affect your tefillah, it's going to affect your Torah, avad gimelos chasadim, it's going to affect anything and everything that you do. So for example, we know some of the ingredients. Lamashal, with the yeshiva boys, with the yeshiva chevra, we're saying in yeshiva you feel great. Why do you feel great? Because you have a selach harav, you've got guidance. You've got good friends. You've got very rich conversations. You have massive action in a good, healthy environment, hopefully. And you feel good. I asked boys in the yeshiva, who this year in yeshiva feels good, like they're really growing? Bang. What are the ingredients? Again, fundamentally, what are the most basic ingredients that are adding up to that? Because after yeshiva, a lot of people start to reduce in that feeling that they don't feel as good. Why? Because they forget the structure. So you have to learn to take that structure and place that structure somewhere else. When you go back, I was speaking to some chevra in Canada. They're going to Canada. So in Canada, after yeshiva, they have to already set up a selach harav to the best of their ability. They have to set up chaverim to the best of their ability. They have to set up rich, healthy conversation to the best of their ability, and they have to keep on growing to the best of their ability. That rich conversation, pardon?
Sounds easy in a yeshiva environment.
But what did I just say? What did I just say?
To the best of your
To the
ability.
best of your ability. That I said that. I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy. However, what happens with a lot of people, they don't know the structure, and because they don't know the structure and conscious competency, because of conscious competency, they couldn't tell you, and they miss Asela Harav. They miss rich, nutritious conversations. Happenstance. What we're saying is be disciplined to the best of your ability. Make this real. And those chevra over the years that have done that, so I have chevra in America that reach out, in America, this is in America, they reach out to me 3 o'clock in the morning. We have meetings Sundays and Thursdays. This chevra, there's like mamish, close to maybe 90 to 100 people. They reach out over the course of a year. Some people every month, every other month. They reach out, they'll call 3 o'clock in the morning. And what will we do? We'll shoot through the Arbi Sidus, where you up to, we'll shoot through these 4 elements. And the lives are better for it. So structurally, can we come up with something? The answer is yes. Is it difficult? It takes effort, yes. In yeshiva, you're right. But outside of yeshiva, you can create good atmosphere as well. And this is something important. But it comes down fundamentally, you are the kli. You are the kli to Megala Elokus in the world. Our devekus, our emunah, our bitachon, our keeping halacha, Shulchan Aruch, ticking off every halacha, ba'ahava rabba, b'yira. You are the kli. And what it looks like, Alpi Sod, in a very, very simple, in a very simplified way, is we've said you have the neshama, you have the ruach, and you have the nefesh. You have the neshama, you have the ruach, and you have the nefesh. Okay? We have the Or Ein Sof. The Or Ein Sof's always coming down. The Or Ein Sof, the bracha, remember Chumash. Again, Chumash. We could for sure run to Kabbalah Sfarim. We don't need to. We've got Chumash. We have Tanakh. Tanakh, and we have the world of Chazal. And it's true to say, even between Tanakh and Chazal, languages changed. But the Nakuda is, it's the same idea. That bracha and klala, parashas re'eh, Hashem gives us bracha and klala. You look at unklus, what's unklus? Reframed bracha. Reframed klala. Klala is reframed bracha. So the more that I can align myself, I can become more of a baldas, I let the light come through into my neshama, then it comes through into the ruach. Das sits at the top of ruach, bridging neshama and neshama and ruach. Das sits at the top of ruach, bridging both. Then it comes down. Here I'm not going into, but that's chokhmah, bina, and das. Chesed, gevur, and tiferes. Chesed we call a dimyon, imagination. Gevura we call machshava. Tiferes is hasaga, which bridges these two. Ruach and neshama. I'm not going into it now. And then you have netzach od yisod. But the basic pattern is the light coming down through us. The more conscious we are, we can allow the light through into the ruach, down into the nefesh, and it will affect our actions. When I'm more centered, when I'm more a balasam, baldas, when I'm more present and more centered, the light can come down in a kasha and yasha way. And for sure, the more I'm attacking my midos, the more that I'm fixing up my midot, the purer and more cleanly the light can come through. And when that light comes through, all my actions are different. And remember, there's HaShem in the world. So we have to do the work. We have to do the work. At times, things may come up, but we have to do the work. And I am this, you are this. You have a neshama, you have das and ruach and nefesh. And what's happening is you want to be a merkava. This is a very simplified, general understanding of the Merkava. Understand that the moment you go into the world of the Arizal, the moment you go into the world of the different Mekubalim, it's a slightly different Shita. It's a very complex world. I'm trying to simplify something to get us started here. But you are the Merkava. And each aspect, each soul part has an experience. The neshama has an experience. The ruach has an experience. The nefesh has an experience. When I can codify that in experience, I'm living differently. I'm living better. I'm living more wholesomely. And especially, again, this is the fundamental. Fundamentally, I exist. How do I work? Fundamentally, I exist within a system. How does that work? To the most basic degree. Fundamentally, pain, pleasure, structural, simplification. Yes. But how does that work? What are the ingredients to live well? And in our Derech HaAvodah, in the next step of the evolution of Am Yisrael, reclaiming who and what we are. B'derech HaShem, this is very, 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 very important material. Very important. I bought in again. As I said from the beginning, I'm not ger b'davar because I bought in. Who has to test it? You do. Who has to challenge it? You do. Critical thinking about it. And what we will do, obviously, is from the beginning until now, is to ask questions that are relevant. And to evolve. Yes?
I would like to just contrast the image that the Rav just displayed. What would be the version of it that we're experiencing if we're not aligned? Like, where does the light get distorted?
So this is how I want to end for today. I'm about to explain that. This is how I want to end and speak about Chet Adam and maybe speak about Hanukkah for a moment. Okay? This is where I want to end today. So, okay, any other questions so far? Okay, yeah, you...
Just a clarification on...
Yes.
You mentioned it just passing by, but... Ruach is...
Can they see this?
imagination
They
and
could see
fleeting
this.
thoughts.
They could see this here if I do this, Nachon?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Imagine
Backwards or whatever. Yes.
Ruach is imagination and fleeting thoughts.
Ruach, no. Within Ruach, again,
I know you've mentioned it passing by.
Yeah, what we say is within Ruach we have Chochma Bina. In Ruach we have Chesed, Gevura, and Tiferes. Chesed we call imagination, expansiveness. Gevura is Machshava, more cognitive thinking. Tiferes bridges Ruach and Nefesh. It's Hasaga. And Netzach Hod Yisod. Hod is Hirhurim, fleeting thoughts. Netzach we translate as Regesh, emotions, and Yisod is physical sensations. And this is based on the backdrop that there's so many layers to the world of the spheres. There's so many layers to the world of the spheres.
But doesn't that inherently cause a challenge, or at least set us up to be a challenge? Because we were just saying the structure, but we're also now just recognizing in that example alone, there's many different structures how to understand the
Correct.
So-
And that's why we go shlav by shlav. You're 100% right. And that's why it's a process, shlav by shlav. When we explain one idea, then hopefully we could lead on to another idea and hopefully lead on to another idea. If I explained what I'm explaining now right at the beginning, it would have been a very, very different experience. Every single time we are meeting here, so we have a text, okay? The text here is a life lived from Dat. So we can very easily read this. And we could read it, okay, and we've already pushing. So this introduction now will qualitatively and quantitatively be different before doing this introduction and not doing this introduction. And that's to do with the human experience. For sure it's complex.
And that's the parallel of the nefesh to the nefesh to the nefesh, because the whole idea is that there was a very, very basic way of understanding the structure. And then once you understood that, really there's a deeper structure and a deeper structure. Right? In the same way as the mashal, that ultimately you're always pulling back and seeing a new painting that's even more beautiful.
Yes. It goes on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And it takes time. It's a journey. It takes discipline. And I'm not here for the short game. I'm not here for instant gratification. I learned that from especially Rav Mordechai Zuckerman, Zichron Livracha. Rav Mordechai Zuckerman was a Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim and Rav Avram Grudzinski, coming from the Olam HaMusa. And he would saying, don't come here if you want drugs, if you want samim. What did he mean? Don't come here if you want a quick high. I'm going to share with you till you're bored in the face, because I will know when you're living it and when you're not living it. Yes.
So, and I just want to point out that you could actually write every single thing you just said in the shiur just now. You could have put that down on the page.
Correct.
Just read that.
Correct.
But it's about the experience of you. When you give me a text, there's no guidance of how to read it, or there is a guidance. There's a natural guidance. I read it a certain way, and it doesn't have the same inflection that if you would give it
Correct.
in the shiur.
Yes.
So it goes towards the experience of what you're talking about.
Correct.
That you could beat us over the head with a book, or you can share the experience as best of your ability as possible. At the end of the day, I still may interpret things differently. Maybe because I'm sitting here, not over there.
Correct.
And we have Shiur.
Correct. So this nakuda
The
of
book itself is an experience.
this
by
nakuda
itself.
of a written text, is something very important. But then you're very, very zeicha that the person that wrote the text can share with you. I'd love it. I imagine I have dreams, so many dreams of hearing the Balatanya darshan. Or hearing Rabbi Nachman darshan. When I learned Likutei Maharan, many times I had so many dreams. I'm sitting with Rabbi Nachman, I'm asking questions. At the end of the day, I don't know if it's Emes or Sheker, because it could be my own dimyon having a dream of Rabbi Nachman, or the Balatanya. But many times, for example, there's situations, Lamashal, when learning the Leshem, and the Leshem in a dream quoted a Emek HaMelech, and I found that Emek HaMelech. But it could be that I've seen that Emek HaMelech before. I don't know, but it for sure helped. Same with the Balatanya, they give good things, but where is that coming from? That could be coming from my own, but I don't need to know. I just need to keep to the program. I need to keep to the program. Kedusha, Tahara, Anava, Shiflus, Asel Charav, proper Chaverim. Keep to the program, and what starts to happen is you can start to trust. The other nakuda that you're talking to, and we spoke about this, I believe, in The Journey Begins, and that is Maisa Bereshis and Maisa Merkava, which is built off a Rhapsodic. Maisa Bereshis and Maisa Merkava. Maisa Bereshis is the book. Maisa Bereshis is the book. It's learning the words on the page. It's the book. Maisa Merkava is the experience. It's the transmission of the experience. And that's why there's this nakuda in Sod that whatever Sod means in the way it's being defined by Shas, whatever it means, there's a definition to it. But the nakuda of Maisa Bereshis and Maisa Merkava only can be shared through a teacher. But it could be they're learning the same texts. That is a Maisa Bereshis text. You chap, because there's in context and out of context. And it's only through the transmission and the relationship in real time. So what was Reb Mordechai Zuckerman saying to me? He was saying to me, I'm going to repeat the same things until you're bored senseless, because I will know when you've got it. Why? Because of Maisa Merkava. He could see if I've got it or not. And that's how he worked. That's
Understand. Can you see if we've got it?
Baruch Hashem, yeah, without any question. Without any question.
I mean, understand it. You can see if you understood.
He felt it. It wasn't even cerebral. He knew, because you were in front of him.
Are you talking about one-on-one, or he's talking about...
Even if there was a few people.
Or if we're talking about 100 people.
So there's still, you can assess, you can see, you can feel.
It's reading the room kind of.
Yeah, you can feel it. But what I wanted to do just before we end is explain a nakuda. And this nakuda is very, very, very important, because this is to do directly with Tikkun Chet Adam. This is directly to do with Tikkun Chet Adam. When Adam and Chava were in Gan Eden, there was a perfect alignment. The Or Ein Sof came into the neshama, came into the ruach, came into the nefesh, and every expression was a divine expression. This is Or with a Aleph, Or with an Aleph. The light came all the way through, and there was the most perfect, deliberate, beautiful, graceful expression of Or.
Our skin glowed.
Correct, but that's the Nakuda. The Nakuda is there was a beautiful expression of Or. After they ate from the tree, we're told, the Makublim explained, there was a fracture. A simplified way of explaining that fracture is that the Ruach fell into the Nefesh in a, so to speak, unhealthy way. That means that their perception, their experience became thicker. If you remember, we said that when it's Or with an Aleph, you could see into yourself and you could see into the other. When it's Or with an Ayin, when so to speak, the Ruach fell into the Nefesh, everything became thicker. You can't see into yourself and you can't see into the other.
It's almost 6,000 years like this, and we still haven't.
Well,
defined this.
we could be positive, my friend. It's okay.
Distraction? Is the thickness of
It's to do with distraction, it's to do with your own compounded interpretation of something, it's to do with your protection of yourself. I need to protect my own self. So the thickness are all of the bad midos that, so to speak, we experience. All of the bad midos, I feel rejected, I'm relating to my thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. I'm making up all of these negative stories in my head. I get angry, annoyed, frustrated. Whatever the lower, so to speak, heavier vibrational frequency is, I'm living it. Tikkun hamidos, so to speak, again, we're using an odd language here, but tikkun hamidos, the more I become conscious, the more I bring the ruach, so to speak, out of nefesh, so to speak. Again, a lot of so to speaks, but I create an alignment. With this alignment, then I can observe from this nakuda of das, I can observe that which is going on, and if I'm working on my midos, I can better refine and relate to what's going on in a more hopefully kasher and yasha way. So what we are involved in is recreating the ability to negotiate, ruach, so to speak, or das, interchangeable right now, but ruach negotiates between the neshama and the nefesh. Ruach is the space of consciousness. When I live that consciousness and I'm more aligned, the light, Hashem's light, can come down through me. I'm more of a kli. I'm more of a healthy kasha and yasha kli. And anything I do is going to be qualitatively and quantitatively better. Yes?
Just to make sure I'm understanding, I'm going to be a little pedantic, but in the image, the Rav has arrows, and that's supposed to be the light.
Yeah, Hashem's light, it comes down. If we're a kli, the or is always coming down, comes into the neshama, comes into the ruach, comes into the nefesh, and then everything that we do is more clean. In this state, it's an experience of love, calm, collectivity.
Okay, so when the ruach, so to speak, fell into the nefesh, the light is still coming in.
Correct.
Perfectly.
Correct.
But it's not being shown out.
No.
Clearly.
So this is the next, this is stage one. Stage one, Chet Adam. Okay? We're aligned. Now what happens, this is the whole inyan that we say, Kudshay Baruch Shchinte. L'Shem Yechud, we want to create a relationship between the Tiferes and the Malchus and the Tiferes. This is what we're speaking about, this alignment. So when there's a disconnect, the light's still coming down, because the light always comes down. But what happens is, because it's not clean, the light is life force, chius, ein sof. So what happens is my interpretation is thicker. My interpretation now is not as actually it is. I forget. One of the biggest nakudas here is I forget. Das is remembering, and forgetfulness is when I'm owned by the nefesh. And remember, we said the nefesh, that's where all your memories are. I get caught up in my memories. I get caught up in my previous experiences, believing they are real. I believe my biography is my destiny. So it becomes heavier. So when a person's a baldas, they feel lighter. When a person is stuck in, when you feel das, you feel lighter. When you feel das, you're more in love with life. You're more connected. Everything makes a lot more sense. You can hold that which is going in a better way. When a person's not in das, in an unhealthy way, they feel heavier. It's noisy. But the same light as in das is the same light that when's one not in das, but it's polluted. The lens is dirty.
One can be, I'm just trying to, if somebody, for example, is intoxicated, they can feel very light. They're not.
Correct, but we know it's not real.
So it's not about the heaviness of the experience, necessarily. It's a good indicator, typically, the heaviness of the experience, but it's not defined by the heaviness.
Correct, I'm just using words to try and communicate this point, but yes.
To clarify that
Yes.
is important to me.
Yeah.
So just a couple of points in this context to try to bridge. First of all, so in the extreme idea of this light being interpreted now with the capacity of being very, very different, very thick as an alignment, a mulek, right, is basically the extreme representation of taking the light to the completely opposite degree of saying, I see value in doing exactly what otherwise we were not supposed to do.
Correct.
And I will fight for it, and with
Correct.
the cost it has, that's really what
Amalek wants to take it to the extreme. Eruv Rav wants us to forget. Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, and then the other nakuda is that what the Rav was just saying right before that, the the paradigm reframe with what happened when Yaakov was having the dream of the ladder, the angel going up and down. That really was very much.
Ratzav V'Shov.
That was very much connected with this idea.
Correct.
And Badafka was so powerful for him and how he had it, and then what his takeaway was after it. The idea of the stones coming together.
Correct.
It was basically a consequence of him being able to experience or with an aleph, and that by doing that, there was no longer any barriers, there was no thickness, because everything was aligned.
Correct.
And he took, and in that moment after, he was able to see, he saw the alignment.
In Taras Chabad, the stones represent nefesh, anmetaken, and he brought that nefesh up to ruach and neshama, and that's why they became echad. They merged together 100%. So what we have discussed so far is an introduction. And from our introduction, we're speaking about, again, the structure and the experience. And that in the experience, I'm bridging present with past, knowing and trying to work out how to better go into my next action. We spoke so far about the Nakuda of Nefesh and alignment a little bit. And we spoke about the Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh in a flow state. And we spoke about just now when it's not in flow state. There's obviously a lot more to speak about. We want to be in flow state. In exile, the Neshama is codified as being in the Ruach, so to speak, is being codified as being in the Nefesh. And the light comes down in a twisted way. The lens is dirty. Tikkun Amidas, you see everybody, all through the Sfarim. And this Derech HaVaveda feeds into anybody that had this Messiah. So we've spoken about how we have a kuntras that shows everything that we're sharing in Taras Chabad, everything that we're sharing in Taras Breslov, everything that we're sharing in Taras Piasetzna, all of those that had a Messiah. You see it clearly, slightly different languages at times. Taras Hagra, when, for example, the Gra writes, as we quoted so many times in Perek Aleph Beis, that the Seichel is manhig the Nefesh. Going back to earlier sources of as we've mentioned of the Kuzari. So this Nakuda of alignment allows us, being present allows us to hopefully live differently in a better way. And I just want to read one paragraph here and then tie it into Hanukkah before we end. So, a life lived from Das. The more we function from this place, the more divine light can flow through us. Make sense? Or makes a little bit more sense, on whatever level?
It made any sense without the introduction.
Yeah. So the more we function from a place of Das, the more divine light can flow through us. What is beyond Das? A more palpable experience of divine intelligence. Through being in and living from this state of Das, we can start to be in touch with our neshama, communicating to us through Baskol. That's one idea. That's one idea that I put on the table here. And what is that insight? I'm functioning differently. I'm looking at life differently. I'm processing differently. And I could start to hear things I would not have heard before. I start to perceive things I would not have perceived before. This is the process of becoming an Adam Yashar, an aligned being, and it is good for all of us. So this Nakuda of Yashar, again, we've spoken about, as I said, in this series that I'm sharing right now, starting from the journey begins to the awakening, we are compounding ideas. So we spoke about how Adam Yashar, you look in Tefillah, HaShem is Yashar, 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 Yashar. And the Heilige Imre Noam, the Jikava, he writes that Yashar is Yediyah, Shmiya, and Re'iyah, which he codifies as being present. Yashar is starting off by being present. Yediyah, I'm in a state of Das. Yediyah, Shin is Shmiya, I'm listening. Reish is Re'iyah, I'm looking at life differently. I'm seeing things differently when I'm grounded. Adam is Aleph, Daled, Mem. Adam, David, Moshiach, which is to do with time, to do with space. Arich, Das, and Malchus. And Da, Ma'ani, which is found in one of the Sfarim, the Imre Yaakov, he brings this. So this Nakuda of being centered, this Nakuda of aligning. So when we speak about Hanukkah, Hanukkah is Chanukah. It's resting. Chanu, the resting, it's resting here, ka, here. And this Nakuda is our starting place of Das. The light, Chochmas Adam Ti'ir Panav. It's a light. The more I can recognize Chanukah in the middle of the winter, Chanukah in the middle of the winter, the Ner Chanukah. The Ner Chanukah is about full integration. There can't be a Ner without a wick. There can't be a wick. There can't be a flame without a wick. And there can't be a wick without the oil supplying the wick, which is giving koyach to allow the candle to be. And there can't be the oil, the wick, and the flame without the container holding it. The structure. You can't have that experience. And going back to the Ibn Ezer, that you need the nefesh, nishmasai, and the guf. You have to know everything. So one of the kavanas of Chanukah is this integration process. One of the nakudas of Chanukah is das. It's calling out to us, be present. Work on your das. Become more balei das. And the kavanah is I sit by the Neirus, if we can, to sit by the Neirus Chanukah and to be present and to daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, allow me, please gift me to be more aligned. I'll try mitzad, my side. I'll try and build myself tikkun hamidais. I'll try to understand these teachings. And hopefully to live better, to be that light. Or legoyim. This is how we do it. Yes? I'm in Shiur. Tell her she knows I'm in Shiur. Okay?
She said that she needs you.
So tell her I'm in Shiur. I'll be up soon.
But she'll say that she
No,
needs
she won't. I don't think she will because she knows I'm in Shiur. Okay, go and tell her. And if you have to come down because it's an emergency, let me know. But hopefully it's not. And she knows I'm in Shiur. So this nakuda of Chanukah, Chanukah, it's being present. It's recognizing integration. It's not negating. There's a structure. We respect the structure. And we respect, apart from the structure, the experience. And again, this nakuda that the Ibn Ezer brings. Im lo yada nafshoi v'nishmasoi v'gufoi. What do we understand? It's not to get caught up in the structure, just the structure. It's not to get caught up just in the experience. It's the language and communication of both sides. And as we said, Kipshutai, just in the first, the more that we can function from this place of das and allow the light through. And the experience of that is, letting go. The experience is letting go, being present, letting go. And we'll speak more about that as we go into this next week. Be'ezras HaShem Yisbarach. Any closing questions before you break up and share, Chevra?
Can we ask questions afterwards?
Yeah. Like usual. Yes.
I'm just I was curious. I think I kind of already have the answer, but I'm going to follow through with the road. Based on everything we just said, you would have a Havamina to think, the menorah, whether it be in the base of the Mikdash or not, even on the Hanukkah level, that really would be vertical, right? Because the whole idea is that we're seeing everything is coming down. But the reason why it's horizontal is because the overall message is that we need to still be focusing on this world, right? Is that really meant to be the idea?
Yes, there's a beautiful, I remember a few years ago when I was by Rav Kluger, he gave a beautiful Torah on this. Yes. Beseder. So I'll invite you in a moment to break up into your groups. And Chevra online, you should have bracha, you should have mazel, and you should have hatzlacha. And Chevra here, bracha, mazel, and hatzlacha. And Be'ezras HaShem will take what we are sharing and hopefully better our lives, mamash, better our lives, and better the lives of people around us, being a meilitz yashar, mamash, davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'devekus, be'emunah, with good, healthy bitachon, and make a difference, alignment of neshama, ruach, and nefesh, becoming a markava like Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Imais, Be'ezras HaShem, and mamash to go strength to strength and keep on being a light. Bracha v'atzlacha.